Hello, everybody. It's Linda Lippin here. I'm here for Linda Lippin Live. I have not been with you guys in a couple of weeks. It's just, it's been busy. It's been beginning a year. I've been into the kind of gliding into the new year instead of racing into the new year, which is feeling good for me. I want to give you guys a quick trigger warning at the beginning of this, which I don't usually do, but my guest today, Charya Hilton and I, are really going to be deep diving into disordered eating, disordered exercise, into body image, into food, into the ways that the patriarchy has been trying to control us, our behaviors, and our bodies like forever. And specifically for those of you who are either Pilates and exercise clients or exercise instructors, we're going to talk about the deeply unhealthy part of the health business, which is that a whole lot of us as trainers have disorders of our own, and we project a lot of those onto our clients. And in fact, a lot of the health and fitness and diet and weight loss and all the plans that are out there, a lot of them were simply created by trainers with eating disorders who happened to lose weight and decided that their clients could do the same thing. Um, Now, I have a history of eating disorder. Charya Hilton, who we're going to be meeting in a second, also has a deep history of eating disorders. Both of us kind of came into ourselves and into the wellness space for women as a result of our experiences with that. So basically, if it triggers you or disturbs you in any way to hear some true stories and some true talk and experiences about eating disorders. We're going to be talking about hospitalizations, like we're talking about the real stuff. This is not the live to listen to. This is the live to just let go. Unless you want to listen to it with your therapist and unpack what's happening for you right after, because this is going to be a doozy, just so we all know. This is something that is extraordinarily important to me personally. Many of you do know because I've been talking about it publicly a lot more in the past few years. But I come from a long and deep eating disordered history that started probably in preschool and elementary school. And we'll dive into a little bit of that later on. So, my guest today is Charya Hilton, and she is a master really health and wellness coach for women who come from a history of disordered eating and are really just looking at getting a better relationship with themselves, with their bodies, and with food and with society and with life. She has been helping women overcome chronic dieting, binge eating, and emotional and compulsive eating for over 25 years. Right? She seeks to help her clients be permanently free from eating weight and body struggles so that we can then focus on being the great, powerful, creative, and self assured humans we are supposed to be when we're not thinking about food 65% of the day, if not more. She has a very personal journey, which she will share with us, to freedom from her eating and weight issues. This has included anorexia, being as low as 77 pounds, being hospitalized. This has also included binge eating up to over 200 pounds. And we'll talk in a moment about how the medical establishment handled that, because that was, I don't think, done well and did a service to you or, anybody around you for that. Nothing really helped Charya until she found Susie Orbach and Fat is a Feminist Issue. And frankly, that's why I put patriarchy in the title to this, because that control of food, that control of bodies, that way of telling us what we're supposed to look like and how we're supposed to be and feel and walk on this planet is a patriarchal thing. It is a thing of power and of power over us. And it causes us to lose power, right? We end up, like you say, we end up lying to everybody around us, sneaking food, and doing all sorts of things that really hurt us and hurt our relationships, hurt our businesses, and hurt everybody around us. And the way to handle that is not more control. It is not. And I love the fact that you use these highly effective techniques, Charya, like hypnosis, ways to just get underneath some of the walls and the bullshit that we've kind of built up for ourselves. Yeah. And this work speaks so much to me and to so many of my clients and so many of my friends that I've been very excited about talking to you. So, Charya, tell us a little more about yourself.
Okay. So I won't tell you, like, the story would be a book if I told you every little detail, but I'll pick out the kind of juicy bits that kind of illustrate how I got to where I am and to do what I do. So my first issues with food weren't really massive in my childhood. I had all the typical things. The first kind of diet I ever went on was when I was probably about 16 or 17, and that involved eating just two chocolate biscuits for lunch and just weird ideas that I did with a couple of friends. It didn't last, but it was already becoming, because I'm the same age as the famous model Twiggy, and she arrived on the scene when I was the same age as her. So that began to trigger everybody into thinking about looking different and not being thin enough and all of that. But I wasn't really aware that it mattered to me too much until at the age of about 18, there were two or three really deeply traumatic events that happened to me. And I won't go into them because they don't really matter what they are, but they just happened. And for some reason, at that point in time, I unconsciously decided that controlling my weight through not eating was going to really solve some problem for me. Basically, it diverted all my attention away from the trauma onto the trauma I was creating in my body and my psyche, but that took up all my attention and it became absolutely self-absorbing. And within probably, I was at physical education college at the time, so I was physically very active. I was very fit, very healthy, and then bang, this cracked in about 6 months after I arrived in college. These few events cropped up, and within 2 or 3 weeks, I'd already started to limit my food very dramatically. And that then became the all absorbing thing in my life. And all the other stuff that was going on around me kind of got screened out. And I became very, very inward focused. And I started to hide food, lie about food, all of the stuff that anorexics do. And I became really, really good at lying. And I've never really been a liar before, but I lied about everything just to keep people away from being able to feed me. I would just stick it in my when I eventually I got taken into hospital because I collapsed in the street. I resisted it all the time. Everyone wanted to send me to hospital, I wouldn't go. I collapsed in the street, so I got taken in. There was nothing I could do about it. And when I was in there, by that time I was about 70 odd pounds, something like that, very thin. And at that time there was very little discussion about anorexia. A doctor came to me and they examined me for all kind of things, and they thought I had some disease. And then eventually they discovered what it was. And they said to me, I mean, it sounds really stupid, but they said to me, if you put on about 14 pounds, you can go home. So I wanted to be out of hospital because there they were making me eat. They were going to force feed me. So being very clever, because anorexics are not stupid. I thought I'm
I
just
know
going to eat
exactly
as
what you
much as
did. You
ever
were
I
like,
can, and I
I
can
can
go
gain
home
14 pounds.
and then I can start all over again. So I did. I ate and I
Yes.
put on 14 pounds in it because my body was starving. It went, thank you very much. And it put the weight on really quickly. 3 weeks later, I was out on my own again. I was living at home, but I mean, I was away from the medical. So then I started it all over again, and that, I carried on, and I managed to keep lowering my weight. And then my father, who'd been diagnosed with cancer, which was one of the traumatic events that had triggered it all, he died. And within about 2 weeks of that, I just suddenly turned the other way, and I just started. I mean, I know where I was, what I ate, all of it clicked in the other direction. Then I just started to eat massively over time, and that really scared me because I'd lost all control. So I managed to control that by eating for 3 days, absolutely starving for 3 days, eating for good, but it still kept going on. And my dad died around Christmas one year, just after Christmas, and I was about 70 odd pounds. And by the next Christmas, I was nearly 200. So I always laugh at it because I think I ate my body weight, twice in that year.
Right, right.
I ate that much. And then it just went on year after year after year, I dieted and put it back because I believed the myth, the lie, that if we die, it's going to go, and there was something wrong with me, and why couldn't I do it? All that stuff that goes with dieting. And it was just when I got married and I had 2 children, and nobody knew that I was binging in this way because I never vomited. I just starved myself. I found it really difficult. I
Right.
tried from it. I
And a
couldn't do
lot
that.
of people don't know that
Yeah,
bulimia takes
yeah,
multiple forms. So that there's definitely the vomiting bulimia,
yeah.
and I've
And
had
that's what
friends with
most
that,
people think. Yeah,
which is the typical bulimia,
yeah,
right, that we all think about. But like I said, that particular kind of bulimia didn't work for me.
yeah,
It just wasn't easy. It didn't
yeah.
like, I wasn't into it.
No,
Um, but
I
I,
couldn't
like
do it.
you, was fine with then I just will wake up, I won't eat for the next couple of
Yeah,
days, and I'll make sure
exactly.
I go to the gym for at least an
Yeah,
hour on the
yeah.
days that I'm not eating, and then that should balance out
Model it
the
all out.
4,000
Yeah,
calories I ate last night
yeah,
in
exactly.
Ben& and Jerry's
Yeah.
and
Even, I mean,
biscuits, right?
I would say to my husband as I was married then, I've got to go and do something. I've got to go and see my mother or something. And I would go in the car, eat, and then come back like an angel, and like nothing. And no one really, it was really easy to convince people because I was already really good at lying. So I could lie about this. And it just made me feel worse and worse and worse. The guilt and the shame of the lying to everybody I cared for. It was really, really difficult. And then out of the blue, in about the late 70s, I came across an article in Cosmo magazine about a little paragraph about this woman, Susie Orbach, who was going to run her first ever group in the UK. And it was just up the road from where I lived, and it was going to be the following week after I'd read this magazine. So I plucked up courage and I went thinking I'm going to be the fattest person in the room. And of course I wasn't. And it all changed from then on in, basically. It wasn't like
Yes,
miraculous, but it was the journey began back then because I saw the whole thing from a completely different perspective. And
exactly.
there were chocolate biscuits at the meeting. It was like you're allowed to eat chocolate biscuits rather than you shouldn't. It was the whole switch and it was really, really transformational for me.
Yeah, and that, of course, is the awesome Susie from Fat is a Feminist Issue,
Yeah, absolutely.
because it is.
Yeah,
Now, where I mean, obviously, there was a lot going on in your family during
yeah,
that time, right? You were dealing with your own personal stuff. Your dad was sick. Your, mom was trying to, like, do
yeah,
everything, I'm sure.
yeah.
But did they, other than when you, like, literally passed out, or when you ballooned to over 200 pounds,
Yeah.
because I've done those same things, um, did anyone really notice what you were doing in the in between? Were there
Well, my mother did. My dad had died by the time I started to put on weight. My mother did because she's always had a weight problem, as she calls it. She's always been on and off diets, gone up. Not
Mhm,
anymore. She's really old. She's dropped it at last. But until well into her 80s, she was always a Weight Watchers fan. Go there, go back, go there, go back, go there, go back. And it wasn't for the community. That was the way she could control it. Somewhere that weekly diet thing would control it for
mhm.
her. And she was concerned, but because she never likes to upset me because of what she'd learned when I was anorexic, upsetting me wasn't a pleasant thing. She always pussyfooted around it, going, "Oh, it's just." I think at first everyone was just really pleased to see me getting better, as they thought, because it meant I
Right,
was
because you were
getting more
gaining weight.
getting weight.
So
So I
that was
must be getting
awesome.
better. So that was no problem. And then it became too much. So my mum took me to the doctors, I think it was, because I wasn't married by then. She took me to the doctors because she was, oh, I know what it was. My periods had never come back. So I
Mm,
ended up going back to the doctors to see what was going on there because anorexia is typical for periods to stop. And they then sent me to the hospital for examinations things about all of that. And the doctor noticed from my records, because it was the same doctor, noticed from my records that there was something going on because they sent me to a psychiatric centre.
right.
Because they did get the idea there was something going on in my noggin, it wasn't just about what, it was something
Right,
was
but
going
these
on.
were still the days before specific treatment.
Yeah,
It's not like you were going
absolutely.
to Renfrew or,
Yeah, I just
one
went
of
to a
the
normal
centers.
psychiatric
You just went to the
unit.
psych ward. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then they started, he then came up with the idea that all I needed, like the idiot I must be, was a diet plan, with all the what the food content was. Like, I had no idea that that's an anorexic Bible. I knew the calorie content of
You're like,
every grain
"I
of rice.
I know how many calories that has. Are you kidding me? I know the
And
fat and
then,
carb
and then
content."
because that didn't work, then they put me on pretty intense diet pills, amphetamines. And that became a problem because actually even they didn't really work, but I was taking a lot of them. So I was really like high as a kite, running around all over the place, exercising like mad, taking pills, starving, taking pills, eating. It was just, and then it made me even more depressed than ever because even the pills didn't work with the kind of thing that was going on with
Right,
me. And
right.
so in the end, I just gave up. I just didn't go back anymore because there was nothing going to make me go back. There was nothing. But my periods didn't come back till after my second daughter was born. So I didn't really get back to kind of proper hormonal health till after that. And they told me when I went back to this doctor the second time, he said to me because my periods had stopped, he said, "Well, you better." I don't think you'll ever be fertile, so you don't have to worry about contraception. I got pregnant 3 months later after. So I
They
didn't
were
have a
just
baby.
full of the A plus information for you, Cherry, weren't
Yeah,
they? They were just
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
basically, they
Pick
just
that
should have
one, pick
said, "We
that
have
one. Yeah,
absolutely no idea what the fuck's
no
going
idea,
on,
no idea.
and good luck,
Yeah.
and
And I
go
think
with
a lot
God,"
of people
because
are left in that position even today. There's not enough understanding about all the aspects of it. And I think for quite a long time before I became a coach, I worked in a family therapy unit where we dealt very much with anorexics, and that was one of the best ways of dealing with it, actually. But there are so many cuts in this country that cut all the family therapy
right.
units, so everyone's chucked out on the usual things again. But it's a really complicated thing, and I think people are still trying to understand it.
And, from my perspective as well, now we've kind of built this whole kind of weight loss industry, right? Like,
Mm,
number one, I've always said to my clients, if there was an actual pill that was healthy that
yeah,
allowed us to all lose weight, everyone would take it
of
and
course.
there wouldn't be an
Yeah,
issue.
yeah,
So all the pills, whatever they are,
yeah,
just, flush them. You might as well
yeah,
just buy them and
absolutely.
flush them because that's essentially what's going to happen. Then we saw the kind of um this push towards like super slim, right? And I saw a lot of that when I was working at Parrot Key at the like A-list private island in the
Yeah,
Caribbean because, that's a group of guests who are very much in the public eye all the time
yeah.
and are very, very concerned with how they look and how they present themselves because that's how they make their money. Um,
Hmm.
right. And I started to see people coming extraordinarily injured, right? Because all of a sudden they were doing 3 high intensity workouts every day. They
Oh my
were,
God.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I have clients still who I have to talk off the ledge when they're going to a high intensity weight workout at the jog pound in the morning, seeing me in the afternoon, and then going to Soul Cycle at night, right? That's what
Mm.
ends up happening.
Yeah.
Then we have, and I'll name names. I mean, we've got a Tracy Anderson studio right here in my neighborhood in Tribeca, and her whole thing is be super skinny, right? I can make you super skinny.
Right.
And I can do it for anybody, but yes, it's going to cost you a lot of money, and you have to come in 5 days a week for these like hour and a half,
Yeah.
workouts every day. She's also one who publicly said that pre-Oscar or award season, she encourages her clients to eat baby food.
No.
Yeah. 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 So
Unbelievable.
there that is. Um, and all of a sudden it occurred to me why everyone looks so exhausted at the award shows, because I had always noticed that. And I was like, they're at the Oscars or the Grammys or the Emmys, and they should be super excited. And everyone just
Yeah,
looks
they're all like,
exhausted because they've all been starving for the last week. And
unbelievable.
apparently that's where everyone sneaks in food. Like, people bring sandwiches in their bags so that they can start
As
to
soon as
eat
it's over,
as
they
soon as
can.
they get off stage.
No.
Yes,
My
as soon
God.
as they get off stage, and then everyone runs to the burger places, and everyone goes to In-N-Out
Yeah.
because they've literally not been eating for, a week to 10 days before. I would see
Yeah.
people before award shows, I would see people after award shows. The after people were just in a much better mood. And we're like, "Oh, we can eat whatever we want now and have a really nice time." Whereas pre-Oscar, it was like, "How many days a week can I see you? And like, how little can I eat, while I'm here in this place that has awesome food?"
Good
So
God.
that's how that went. Now, what's also interesting is I think about, you talked about Weight Watchers, right? So my mother, my parents were mentally ill, but my mother always had an issue with weight. Now, a lot of it was probably hormonal, and a lot of it was probably due to the medications, the
Yeah.
lithium and the
Yeah.
thorazines and all of those. Um, but what she used to do, which, was a thing in the 60s and 70s, right, was she used to take me to Weight Watchers with her.
Yeah.
And I guess to make it more like a game or like a real experience, they would take me through the process. Like, they would weigh me in right after her, and they would give me the little diet pamphlet,
Oh my
but
God.
I was not overweight. See, here's the thing, like, and I didn't know that then. Now
Hmm.
I look at photos of myself and I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell were these people even doing?
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, my whole family got into it because they were trying to empower my mom
Right.
to lose her weight, right? So it was like, "Oh, well, Linda, are you following the Weight Watchers?" And you remember those were the days when it wasn't like points or eat what you
No,
want.
no,
It
no.
was it
Yeah.
was breakfast was like black coffee and a grapefruit
Yeah.
and
It
like
was.
two
Yeah.
pieces
And
of
you were allowed
dry.
2 slices of bread a day, and you
Yes,
could have
and
three
they had to be
pieces of
the
fruit.
ultra thin, like, whole
Absolutely. And in
wheat.
fact, they made their own bread, didn't they? Weight Watchers made its own bread. You
Well,
went,
that's
yeah,
what happened, right? Is now Weight Watchers is owned by Heinz, is
yeah,
is full of fake food.
yeah,
There's so much fake Weight Watchers food that you can
yeah,
buy and ingest. And so and it got to the point, I had this memory. We had a store in the States called Lane Bryant, which has been closed for a while, and they catered to plus size women. My mother took me to Lane Bryant for clothing. The
my God.
salespeople were like, "Why are you bringing your daughter in here? She's not fat. Like, she's not a plus size.
Hmm.
Where is this coming from?" So to this day, I I don't know what size I am by looking at myself, even in a
Yeah,
mirror.
yeah,
I even in clothing size, I don't care. I'm wearing a medium now. I used to wear a large or an extra large. I know intellectually I must
yeah,
be smaller. My jeans fit,
yeah,
like, all good, but I only see it in photos.
yeah,
I have to literally look at a outside of myself image
yeah,
to actually know what I look like, because I realized that the whole time that I wasn't fat, I was being told that I was.
yeah.
So I just started controlling food and controlling that, and always thinking that thinner, thinner, thinner must be better. And then my parents were so involved in their own stuff that, I mean, I was 11 years old doing 600 calories a day
Wow. Wow.
because I thought that was great. And that's when I got myself down to like under, close to 100 pounds.
Hmm.
And I was a size 5. Like, that's all I wanted to do was get below a size 5.
Yeah.
Like, that somehow for me, that was like the
Yeah,
pinnacle
there's
of
always some kind
whatever.
of magic number you get fixated on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
All
then,
of our clients
I
have a magic number. Yeah.
and I was doing ballet, and that again puts you in a whole world of,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Obsessed.
of
Yeah.
that. And then no one kind of watched it, and I managed to kind of navigate myself out of it in the obvious ways. In the obvious ways. But to this day, it's like my husband can tell it's starting when I start weighing myself.
Yeah.
First, I'm like, I could just weigh myself once a week. That'll be fine. And then I'm like, but I didn't weigh myself at the same time.
Yeah.
So maybe I just need to do it twice a week. And that way, if I'm doing it at slightly different times, that evens that out. And then I'm like, well, I should probably really weigh myself every day, right? And I should do it at least once in the morning and once in the afternoon. And the minute he sees that, he is like, you need to stop that right now, because he
Yeah.
knows that is
Yeah.
that's gateway behavior
Yeah. It is. It really is.
in
It's like
in
your gateway drug,
moving
really.
into
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then, I started being able to eat whole foods and enjoy that again, but with intermittent fasting
Uh-huh.
and carb cycling and macro tracking,
Right. Right. Yeah.
so that I could still try to control and
Yeah.
manipulate it all. And that is really what's happening in the health and fitness world.
Yeah.
It's like my friend Tom Venuto came out with a book about probably 8 years ago. And he literally said in the book that the people we should be looking toward for healthy eating were competitive bodybuilders. And I thought to myself, are you kidding? Are you kidding? Because they have some of the most disordered eating
Yeah.
I've ever
They're
seen.
maniacs. Absolute maniacs. Yeah.
Right. They are. I mean, this is a population that used to take a lot of drugs,
Yeah.
but now
Yeah.
that you can't take drugs and compete, they've
Yeah.
stopped doing that. But between the supplements and the protein powders and the branched chain amino acids, I mean, there's an entire rabbit hole of
Yeah.
that, right?
Absolutely.
That you
I
can
mean,
just
it's
drop into.
massive over here. I mean, I just find it really, it is actually, they're massive and it's massive. They're all on steroids, anabolic steroids, which is
Yes.
going to kill them. They're going to die from that.
And that's what happens, when I looked at the female bodybuilders who, like, I used to follow when I really, was in
Yeah.
my exercise bulimia. I now know that that's what that is. Um, and if you look at all of them now, like, they all had problems having kids. They
Mm,
all have problems now with weight and with mood and with all of these things as a result of taking all of those hormones and those steroids for so long.
mm,
Then I even find that in the quote unquote more health and wellness oriented of us, like the yoga and Pilates teachers, it actually gets even worse, right? So you take a powerful kind of meditative internal practice like yoga, and then since you want to be as skinny as all the models who do Bikram, you
yeah. Yeah.
you throw yourself into that 120-degree room and sweat your ass off for an hour
Yeah.
and a half,
Yeah.
5 to 7 days a week, again in the hopes of looking
Yeah. It's not
like
about feeling, it's looking. Yeah.
that. And it all becomes about looking. I was told so many times by mean people in my Pilates career that why would anybody want to take Pilates from me if I wasn't super small?
Mm,
Why would anybody want to do that, right? Um, even though, I've been an extremely good, an extremely effective
Yeah,
trainer and teacher for a
yeah.
very long time, no matter what size I've been at. My husband used to joke at people and he would be like, "Yeah, you think she's fat? Try to hit her." And you will experience how strong she really is. Um, and I see it in my clients. Like I said, the clients who are over exercising, the clients who are consistently on diets, the clients who only drink green juices.
Yeah. Oh, those
Yeah.
green juices. It made me feel ill when I look at it. I just think, what are you doing, for God's sake? What is that stuff? Ugh.
I was at a health and fitness gathering. I used to go to them regularly. There was actually this lovely two young women in New York who were PR people. And what they did was it was a great idea. And it was just to charge a minimal amount of money and bring a bunch of really interested women
Hmm.
into a room with tons of vendors and great speakers and like all of those things, right? But when I look back on it, I mean, I remember sitting in one of those lectures and one of the health professionals literally said, "Well, I mean, if you're not at least drinking a green juice every day, then you're just being toxic."
Oh God. I mean, it is sad, but they make me laugh, these people. They really do, because they're just I think it's the word industry that really sums it up, because an industry is there to make a profit. That's what their function
Yes.
is.
Yes.
And during the lockdown in Britain, the industries that made the most money were the Weight Watchers, the Slimming World, all of those. They made shed loads of money here because
Mhm.
they fed literally on people's insecurities and their worries and all of that. And if they really worked, they would go out of business. If all of these things really did make you feel better, happier, slimmer permanently, they wouldn't have existed for all these years. Like, since our youth, Weight Watchers has been there, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
And there wouldn't be like a lifetime there wouldn't be
No,
a need for a lifetime
membership.
membership.
If you go over like 2 or 3 pounds above what they decide you should be, then you have to start paying again. It's like
Right.
ridiculous. And I remember when I first went to my first Weight Watchers, I remember seeing this woman out the front who had a cardboard cutout of what she used to look like and what she looked like now. And she was talking about, and I used to think, I wonder how you know what I'm supposed to weigh. How do you know that? Like, she was, oh yeah, okay, you're 5 foot whatever, you're this age, you should weigh that. That's it. No inquiry, nothing, no medical background, nothing. Just this chart, this BMI chart, I suppose.
A chart
And
done by an actuary in an
yeah,
insurance company. Let's
yeah,
just say it.
absolutely. And they're really out of date and they mean nothing. But people like measurement. Like we were saying about numbers, people want a measurement. They can go, oh, I should be that, and I want to be that, and when I get to that, then I'll be fine. They're not even thinking about health. They think everything in their life will start to work for them when they reach the magic, whatever it is. And they'll struggle and struggle and struggle and never really get why they can't either get there or stay there without an enormous struggle. Yeah. And if they're not, I think also we're kind of conditioned that everything has to be a struggle. Even if you go like down
Right.
the gym, it's got to really bloody hurt or it's not worth it. And you just think, no, it's really not. It's such a hard, harsh way of treating your body, you
One of
know.
my biggest things with my clients is when I have to explain to them that they won't necessarily be super sore after their work with me, and it
Mm,
doesn't mean that it didn't do anything.
yeah,
It
yeah,
does not mean that.
yeah,
Even though I personally, if I'm not super sore after a workout, I'm like, did that really do anything? Even though intellectually I know
yeah,
it did, and I
absolutely.
and I train other people in that.
Yeah.
In me, that is still different. I mean, I almost feel like, and it's kind of funny because I used to um, poo-poo it a lot more, but I have a feeling that at least for here in the U.S., probably one of the most useful groups, depending on how it's led, is actually OA, is Overeaters Anonymous, because then at least you're dealing with it as an
Yeah,
addiction,
yeah,
right? So then at least you're taking it back to the big book, and you're taking it back um to this serenity prayer, and to that process of
yeah,
kind of unpacking your shit
yeah,
and figuring out
yeah,
where the addictive behavior is coming from, and what the triggers are,
yeah,
and kind of how to work with the addiction.
yeah,
Um, when I was, but although of course when I was a kid and my mom was dragging me to all of her weight meetings everywhere, that was like what she did, right? When Weight Watchers stopped working, she went to OA.
right. Yeah,
But my mother didn't really think that food was an addiction for her, and she was mentally ill. Like, you can't take somebody
yeah,
who's,
of course.
bipolar, and
Yeah,
throw them into a 10-step
no,
kind of
no.
recovery program, because they got deeper
Yeah,
brain
absolutely.
issues that they're dealing with, and so I
Yeah,
just think that it didn't work for her.
yeah,
But the concept of it, like, now I look at it and I'm like, actually, of all of them, that probably
yeah,
makes the most sense to me at this
yeah,
point,
yeah.
for the ones that are out there, because at least you're addressing addiction.
Yeah, you're not thinking about restricting and limiting your food in order to get thin. That's not what you're doing. You're looking at why you've got the issue in the first place. You know, where's it being driven from? Because it's like, I think what happens with me in my work, if I can say a little bit about what happens with the women who
Yeah,
come to me,
I would love
every
to hear.
single woman who comes to me always says they know they've got a lot of issues with food, but what they want to do is lose weight. They don't make, and they make that, they know they're connected. Obviously they do, but they don't want to look at the food, but they just want to come to me for the magic pill that hasn't worked all the other, because no one ever comes to me that hasn't tried everything else, especially because I do hypnosis. Hypnosis is very often a last resort for people. They'll try everything else and then they go, well, nothing, I'll give that a go then. So they come
Right.
to that, and that they all say they want to lose weight. And I say, yeah, if you lose weight, that's a side effect. That's not what we're going to be doing. We're going to be working on what's causing you to overeat in the first place, which then leads to the weight. And your focus on the weight is one of the ways you divert your attention from what's really going on with you. That becomes your obsession, when actually that's not the problem. The real problem is what's going on in all. That's basically like, it's almost, I call it a secondary gain, because actually it's literally a secondary gain, because they gain from having it by focusing all their attention on it and thinking once they solve that they're going to be free, when actually until they solve the triggering issues, the emotional issues, the reason that they're compelled to eat, they will never shed that weight and keep it off forever. It will come back again because they haven't solved its function, its purpose, what it's the result of, all of that. And I think it's a really, to me, that's what fascinates me. It's the two things together. Obviously, we've got to work in some way with the issues. We've got to work with what it is they're eating that's causing them to gain weight, and also the thing that no one ever wants to accept, that I often say, your fat is doing you a favor. It's serving you. Your excess weight is serving you in some way. And that's what I
Mhm.
think the first clue that I got from Susie Orbach, that it wasn't just about this, there was this other stuff. And I had to learn to love that function, accept that function. And until I could see what it was, I wouldn't be able to let it go.
Ah,
And
yeah.
that's the two-pronged approach I have. I don't just deal with the why, what they're doing, but there's all the behavior, the habits, yeah, that we've got to work with, and we work with where they're coming from. And then very, very often people will change all of that, and they still not, they're changing their eating, everything's going, but they still haven't let go of the weight yet. And that's because it serves a function. It's what I call, it literally is to me the secondary gain. Every addiction has a secondary gain, if not more
Right.
than one. So for me, the secondary gain is literally the gaining weight. Yeah, you've gained this, and until you work out its function, then it won't go. And that's where another part of the RTT that I do comes in. There's particular techniques to work with those kind of issues, because everything that people do with RT has always got these other functions going on. So it's a kind of clear way of working out what that is and being willing to take on that job for yourself rather than unconsciously your body doing it for you. When you start to do that, then it will go because it doesn't need to be there anymore. But that is really the most challenging bit that people never really want to look at. It's too difficult for them to
Well,
think,
sure, and it also takes your thought pattern kind of away
yeah,
from that. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know if people realize this, but I would say that, if I'm kind of deep, the times when I'm deeper in the food kind of issue,
yeah,
um, probably a solid 65 to 70% of my thoughts in a day
yeah,
revolve around food.
yeah,
And not just and people are like, "Well, why are you just thinking about what you're gonna eat next?" And I'm like,
yeah,
"No, no, no." It's like it's just the whole event of, well, if I eat this at this time, then I can't eat that at that time.
yeah,
And have I had too much fat today? Or have I had too many carbs today? Or I ate this last night, so I can't really eat this now. Or I mean, it's like
yeah. It's all consuming, literally,
it
all
is all
consuming. It
consuming.
is, it's all
I
consuming.
consider a good day when I get kind of below 50% of my thoughts
Yeah,
having to do with food. And
yeah.
I feel like and I think that's another thing that people also have to realize is that even
I
when
mean, the
you're
main, the,
better, it's still not like you're never gonna be thinking about food that way again, but it
It's
does
very
mean
interesting.
that
So I remember waking up one day and realizing something dramatic had happened because I hadn't woken up wondering, is this going to be a good day or a bad day for a whole week? And
wow, yeah.
a good day was I'm going to get through it. I'm going to be really good. And a bad day was going to stuff myself stupid, And I would wake up. That would be the first thought on my mind. Is it going to be a good day or a bad day? Because I knew if it was a good day, I'd end up feeling great at the end, up really together, happy in my life. Everything was working. Then the next day, bang, I'd probably start all over again. A bad day would be, and I would know from the moment I woke up with that question. And then I woke up and I realized that I hadn't had that question in my mind for about a week. And it was like, my goodness, something has really shifted here. I've really made a shift because that isn't what I'm thinking about all the time. I'm not it's not food. I'm not letting eating or not eating run my life anymore. And that was a massive shift for me. And from then on, it really began to change.
Yes, because, a lot of us I think, culturally, we are taught to have this very contentious relationship with food from the very
Yeah,
beginning. I mean, I just remember just the picking up magazines in, the hair salon while I was waiting for my mom to get her hair blown out.
yeah,
And, you know, article upon article of do this diet and don't eat this. And yes, I remember that there was the cabbage soup thing. Remember the cabbage soup thing?
yeah,
Um, yeah, there was the grapefruit thing, there was the
yeah.
cabbage soup
And then there
thing.
was the eggs and bacon thing, and there was all sorts of things, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah. I've
Yeah,
I've had clients with gout, from keto.
really. Wow.
Yeah, and everyone
Gout,
goes,
my
"But
God.
keto is so new and healthy." I'm like, "Keto is the old
Yeah,
Atkins, and
absolutely.
people did die of heart attacks, from
Yeah,
all of that fat, so just, know that."
yeah,
Yes, they were thinner.
yeah. But they died.
They were definitely thinner, but
They were
they
dead.
Right, exactly. I mean,
Yeah,
the same thing happened,
yeah,
with Dr. Agassiz from the South Beach diet,
yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah,
it's still it's about, just living and kind of being and enjoying food
yeah. I mean,
and
I actually,
we're just never taught to do that. We're
and
always
also
taught to
we're
be so
surrounded,
concerned.
like you look at those magazines who've got diets in one side, then you've got cookery in the next.
Yes.
You could have that on two opposite pages. Oh, don't eat anything at all, but my goodness, this cake is wonderful. Like
And
there's
here's a
so
chocolate
much.
tort for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really, really complicated, and food is everywhere. Like and on I don't know what it's like in the US, but over here we have one food program after another, cookery, and then interspersed there's a diet program, and this cookery, it's just like madness, and you can really understand why people are so confused. And I think also, the people that come to me are all wealthy enough to have this problem. Like
Mhm.
it's not a third world problem. People rarely get anorexia in the third world. They can't make those choices. But in our culture, and the women who come to me who can afford to come to me, who've got a lifestyle that they can do that, then that's a problem that doesn't occur to a lot of other people, because it's a whole different ball game. You can't really. When I think back about myself back then, starving myself, making myself not eat, isn't the same as being starved in India or Africa. It's a whole different thing.
Right.
It's a cultural thing that we've got that obsession with thinness, and that thinness
Well,
is the
but we're
answer.
also taught that, right? I mean,
Yeah,
what were
absolutely.
we told about finishing our food when we were kids? Like, I don't know
Yeah,
about you, but it was like, there are starving people in Africa.
absolutely. Yeah,
Eat
eat it
that
all up.
fish stick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And at some point, I think in my teens, I actually looked up and said, "Why don't you just send the fish stick over there?
Yeah,
How about that? They
yeah,
can eat it. It'll be great, and I don't have to, and we're all we're all okay with that."
yeah,
But
yeah,
seriously, that whole idea that because we have access to
yeah.
all of this
You've
and
got to
we
eat it,
can
and then you've got to go on a
supersize it
diet.
and we can, have a
Force
great
feed
time.
it to you, and then it goes take you to Weight Watchers. It's just so bizarre.
Right. Yes.
It's really
Yes, we
bizarre.
would go from the all you can eat buffet
Yeah, yeah,
to the Weight Watchers meeting.
yeah. I think I noticed one of the things with the people I work with or meet in groups and things is they don't understand that as soon as if you've got an eating issue, as soon as you limit it, you're doomed to overeat. That just will happen. As soon as you restrict, you're going to pay it back in some way at some point or another, and then you'll starve again. And it goes on and on and on. And people, it's really sad that people are convinced that dieting is the only way to solve this problem, because it won't. And what the restriction is the worst thing you can do when you've got an eating issue. It's really the worst thing
Right.
you can do.
Exactly, because it just puts you right back into that place. And I
Yeah,
realized even for myself that it didn't really matter what I was counting.
yeah,
Like, I just wanted to be counting something.
yeah,
If
absolutely.
it
Yeah,
was calories, if it was calories eaten, if it was calories burned, great.
yeah,
If it was how many macros a day I was eating, awesome.
yeah,
Um, and it's so funny because, my thing with fitness, and of course we'll talk about this more tomorrow
yeah,
on your Instagram live, is I just want people to feel and function better. Like for me, that's the whole point of exercise.
yeah,
It's just so
absolutely.
we can feel and function better. I have really, um, yay for me on a number of levels, have at least gotten out of the I can out exercise food.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I know that that's not a thing now, and I don't try to do that now, and that has been hugely freeing for me.
Mm, mm.
And when I talk to my clients about that, they're just like, but they're all turning on their iWatches to track how many calories they're burning during
Yeah.
their, Zoom Pilates session because they're like, we should at
I
least
mean,
get
I
credit
find
for this. And I'm like,
it's the
guys,
same. It's the same on my side of the game. It's like everyone wants to count. I go, well, you can count calories if you like, but I don't care what they are. It means nothing to me. I don't want you to weigh yourself. You can weigh yourself, but I don't care what you weigh. I don't care what you measure.
right,
It's none of my business. That's your. If you want to fuss about that, great, but that's not your problem. And the problem that they've got is nothing to do with that. But that measuring I know for me it was really significant because it was a measure of my worth. Basically, it measured my worth. And I had a client the other day that kind of illustrated that so brilliantly. She came on and she's a long-term client of mine. I don't normally see people for a long time. It's usually a 3-month thing I do, but
hmm
she's carried on once a month. We have a chat, and she said to me, even though she's done all the work and she knows what she's doing and she's really intelligent, she watches her thoughts and all of that sort of stuff, and then she said, I got on the scales. I'm really, really sorry. So you don't have to apologise to me. I don't care if you get on the scales. She said, I put on half a pound. And I was like, what? She said, it ruined my day. And it just really struck me, that half of that 7 ounces. and the power of that little dial. And I said, you know, when you wiggle about on the scales, it would go down. You know, they move about. If you know, I was an expert. Oh yeah, it's lower. I just thought half a pound in her whole day.
I remember the great unshedding of things
Yeah,
before the
all the
weigh-in and
things,
Weight
take your watch
Watchers.
off,
Let's take
take
off the
your earrings
watch
off,
because you
everything.
never know.
Yeah, earrings, everything. Go to the loo first, get on the scales. Oh, maybe, you know, it's ridiculous. You know, don't wear your knickers or whatever. It's ridiculous, yeah. But it was just like half a pound. And then we laughed about it and said, yeah, that's why don't bother to weigh yourself, because you're really measuring your self-worth when you do that.
Right. And it became gendered, I found very
Yes,
quickly.
yes, it did.
Um, I found so many mini comments in every meeting and still today about how men lose weight so much quicker and easier than women
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
and how much harder we have to fight for it, and how much worse it is for us to be like
And
overweight.
also,
And I'm like,
I also think the pressure on women to be thin, although it's changing mainly men have to bulk up these days, don't they? But even then, I I often watch a movie and I'll see there's a really big bloke who's really kind of all over the place. You know, he looks a bit of a mess and he's got a starring role and he's always with some skinny little woman who's probably 20 years younger than him, you know, all that stuff. And you just think it's still acceptable for men to be more themselves and do whatever they want to do with their bodies. But for a woman who does that, even if she does it, she's going to get comments. You know, it's going to be commented on. You know, like there's things on Facebook every now and again that crop up with like they talk about a film star over here and they go, have you seen the state of his wife? You know, it's never have you seen the state of him? Have you seen what his wife looks like these days? You know that, and it's always showing up this woman who's kind of let herself go, you know. You think, and but they don't do that for men. It's really rare, and it's still that really mismatch all the time with the pressure of the woman who's got to look great, her hair's got to be great, her body's got everything, every bloody part of her's got to be great,
well,
whatever it is.
I can remember one year pre-Oscar where, one of my celebrity guests was telling us how, she was really there to support her husband that year. It wasn't her, thing. And she's like, I got a great pantsuit. I'm going to be comfortable. I'm wearing a pantsuit. Now, we were still doing plenty of exercise and plenty of, all the things. But she was like, I'm going to be comfortable. I don't have to get
Yeah,
on stage. I
yeah,
just have to sit there and clap and show up at the parties. It'll be fine. And I was like, yay for you.
yeah,
Yay for
absolutely.
you. Because this is not what I'm hearing. This is not what I'm hearing from the other people on the
Yeah,
island.
yeah.
And, but you want to know something? Newsflash. After. What did she do? Gain weight? She wore a pantsuit.
Awful. That's so
Did you see her in
cruel.
the pantsuit? And she looked fucking great in the pantsuit,
Yeah, I
by the
bet she,
way.
yeah,
By
yeah,
the way. There was no like issue with that. But exactly, it was kind of like exactly what she had feared was going to happen
yeah,
happened.
yeah.
She showed up in the pantsuit, and that was the first thing they said. Oh, she couldn't like lose weight and get her shit together, so she had to wear a pantsuit. As everybody else was looking like they were literally going to fall off the stage
Or their head
until they
was
got
so
a
big
bite
it
of
was
a
going to
burger.
fall off their body. That's how, you know,
Right,
they're so
exactly.
thin, their heads look enormous, these women, don't they?
Yes. Yes. And but then if you go back and you actually look at them, right? So and Twiggy did plenty of interviews where she said, that was just my natural body.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
tried so hard to gain weight and I couldn't. I don't know how I became a model because I was
yeah,
so fucking skeletal,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
that's what my body looked like.
And
And
she
then
hated,
that
she
somehow
really didn't
became the
like the name
ideal.
and everything because, and she was a teenage girl. She was only 16, you know, 16 and 17.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she got to, like, I've seen her in the last few years, I've seen her out and about, and she looks a normal, slimish woman of her age. She's not like that
Right.
anymore. But she went through a lot of that. And she was, until she became famous, she was bullied at school for being so thin. And then, whoosh, she got discovered and all the clothes fitted her so perfectly. in that era, and Mary Quant adored her, and everybody went after her.
Oh,
So
yeah.
suddenly she became this icon, really, that so many people tried to copy. But no, very, very few people are naturally ever that thin. And trying to get to
No.
that, you're going to have to really damage yourself to do that. Yeah,
No, and then we had another generation of that, right, with Kate Moss and
yeah,
those women, and they have all gained a little weight now
yeah,
too. Like, that
yeah,
was, again, that was just what their bodies were like, and then
yeah,
that became this kind of, ideal that we were
yeah,
all supposed to meet. Luckily, these women did not grow up during the during, the middle age years when
yeah,
being as plump as you could be was actually
yeah. The
the
thing.
sign that you
Yeah,
had enough money to eat.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, even in some countries today, I mean, if you go to certain countries, people still applaud you for being bigger because it means you must come from a wealthy family.
Oh, Cherry, when I lived in the Caribbean and I was a bigger woman, they loved it. They
Yeah,
loved it.
yeah,
Yeah, because it was like, tourism-wise, they were used to dealing with the super, skinny celebrity kind of people.
yeah,
But in terms of sort of the whole milieu of the Caribbean, large
yeah,
was great.
yeah.
And that, it was kind of interesting culturally
Mm,
to kind of see what that difference was.
yeah,
And then of course, I came back here and it was like, we must all be super skinny and very thin.
yeah,
And I, I think it's so important that there are people like you around, right? Who are kind of willing to take this on and willing to do this work. And so you now currently have a ridiculous professional bio, by the way. So you're the licensed rapid transformational therapy professional, the certified health coach, the nutrition coach, the master coach, performance trainer. You're like me. Like, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it
yeah.
really,
I
really,
mean,
really
I
well.
always say I'm never going to do another training, but then one comes along. But I don't really want to do any more. But I mean, over the years, I've been obsessed with it, really.
Well,
But
that's what happens to me too when I find something that I feel will really benefit my
yeah,
work and clients.
exactly,
Then I'm
exactly.
like,
That's
give me
why I've done
that.
what I do. I wasn't when I got towards the RTT bit. I was already a hypnotherapist, and I wasn't really thinking about anything else. And one of my daughters saw Marissa Peer on YouTube or something, whatever, and she said, "You should see this woman. You'll like her." So I followed her, and then I signed up to do her training. And she's very, very British, so that really appealed to me because almost everything I've done is not being that British, apart from when I
Mhm,
trained with Paul
mhm.
McKenna. He's very British, of course,
Right.
and that's who I trained in hypnosis with. But she's really like we speak the same. The lingo is, we talk the same language in a lot of ways. So I found her really attractive, and I really took to it because it's so fast. It's the it's the quickest way of working I've ever met with anybody is to do
Mhm.
RTT. It's really fast, but I
And
combine
it's
it with my health coaching training because that
yeah.
helps with this as well. Yeah.
I also find, I was the Glennon Doyle did a couple of podcasts over this last month about the resurgence of her eating disorder.
Hmm.
And it was the same thing. It started with her weighing herself. And then, 3 weeks later, she was sneaking the pints of ice cream and throwing up. And um it was the same kind of thing where, you think you finished it. You think you
Yeah.
got it done, and then a stressful moment comes, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a bad stressful moment. It could be a great stressful moment.
Yeah.
Your podcast just won the awards. The
Yeah.
book is out. The things are reopening. We're getting the call to do speaking engagements and all of these things again. And it was like, oh,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
but it took her a few weeks to be able to sort of say it,
Mm,
and to
mm,
say like, all right, my sobriety is challenged in this place,
yeah. I mean, I
in this
think it's like,
place.
whatever your go-to addiction is, that's where you'll go. If you are a smoker, a drinker, whatever it is, that will be, you might be able to not do it, but that will be That would normally be your solution to whatever it is. And I find it really interesting that for me, my eating issues actually did often kick in, not at the beginning, but later when I thought I was getting towards solving it, it would kick back in when I felt really good. And I realized that I found it difficult to tolerate anything other than what I call, well, food became my Prozac in a way. You know, it just moderated my feelings. I couldn't get too high or too low. I could just be in
Right.
like comfortably numb, as I say in my upcoming book. It made me comfortably numb, which is like the Pink Floyd song. Not that I was
Yes.
really into Pink Floyd, but I remember that song, and it was just that really struck me that I wasn't letting myself be really um, feeling good about myself. I could be excited about other things, other people, my grandchildren, all of that, but just being like, wow, it was like, and that excitement was, I would squash it down with food. And I just found that really interesting that it wasn't always about a so-called negative feeling. It was just a certain, the intensity of the feeling itself, the energy of the feeling was just felt too much, whatever it was. And it didn't have to be,
Right.
it, I wasn't always naming it, but there was this upward lift. It was like, can't handle that, squash it back down. And food was the quickest one to do that.
Right. And it's about feeling our feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. It
Um
is.
and a lot of times we just associate, we're just like, oh well, it's the bad feelings
Yeah,
that we
yeah,
don't want, instead of also realizing that all intense feelings
yeah, yeah,
basically kind of do the same, you have a similar response
yeah,
in the body. And if you
yeah,
don't want that level of intensity, you'll do whatever you can do to tamp
yeah,
that down.
yeah, yeah,
It's because, it's too much, and it feels like it's all too much, and
yeah,
then we just control that with food.
yeah. And if you've been told you're too much in somewhere, and other than that clicks in as well, you know. And I was told,
Yes.
I was often told, believe it or not, I laughed too much.
Oh, I was
Yeah,
told that I was too smart, I was too loud, my laugh was too loud. Yeah, you name it.
I was
Just get
too
smaller.
noisy,
Could you just get
laughed too much.
smaller and
Yeah, yeah, just
quieter and go
shrink a
over
bit and
there?
go over there and sit on the, good girls supposed to be seen and not heard, that was the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes. And I think, people kind of forget that the age that we're in now is very, very recent.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You and I are not that old. We're not.
But we remember what it was
Um,
like. Like one of my daughters who's now 50, she said she went to the pub recently and she saw all these girls laughing about feminists. And she went over and she said, "You know why you can come to this pub on your own without a man?" They said, "Ooh," and she said, "Because of people like my mother." When
right.
I was young, I would never have gone out to a pub on my own or with a group of girls. It just would be unheard of. But we had to fight for those things. And people today, young women today, don't get that because they think they're like that's their where it's at. They don't necessarily. Some of them do obviously acknowledge it, but the vast majority of them don't really get what it was like not to be able to have to fight to do things they just do every day. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean my grandmother couldn't get a passport
Yeah,
without her husband's
yeah.
signature.
I couldn't get
Passport,
a bank
credit
account.
card,
Couldn't get a bank account without
bank
my husband's
account.
permission, all of that. And that's only the 70s, I mean, it's a long while ago, but it's not really a long while ago. It's not like, 150 years ago or anything, in Victorian
Right.
era. It's not long ago at all. And it was a long, long time. You couldn't go on the pill unless you were married and your husband gave permission for you to do that. I mean, unbelievable now, whereas girls would just think, what, and it's great that they've got that, but I think it's not that long ago in our lifetime, we've been through all those changes that are just so dramatic. And I'm
Yeah.
really thankful we have too. Yeah,
Too.
yeah.
Me too, because yeah.
It wasn't so great back then.
No, no, it really wasn't. Things just, but then just some things stay the same, and that whole
Yeah,
need, for women to feel like we have to somehow control our size.
we have to control ourselves, basically.
and ourselves, and not eat too much and not eat
Yeah,
too little and do all the things,
yeah,
is really what needs to change, is
yeah.
really what needs to change. And, it's folks like you who help that change happen, you
Thank
know?
you.
Thank you. Yes, I try. And I think, the change happens from those of us who really have been through it all. You
Yeah, I
you have
think
to
so.
have gone through it.
Yeah, I think it's the same with all these kind of movements because I see it as a movement somewhere, a movement forward. I think it always comes from people's personal experience because why would you be that motivated to do anything about it if it hasn't really affected you, you know?
Right, right. And obviously, the medical model, although that it
Yeah,
has improved a lot. So we will
mhm,
give it that.
absolutely.
Um, but the medical model for a lot of folks still doesn't do it and doesn't
No,
work. And I mean, your experience really shows that. I mean, to go from with the same doctor,
yeah,
like that's the best part of it. The best
yeah,
part of that
it
whole
is,
story
yeah,
is that it was the same doctor like a year and a half later who was like, "Oh, let's give her speed
yeah,
because that'll help her stop eating," when he was treating you for being 77 pounds
yeah,
and passing out a year and a half before.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that, yeah.
yeah.
So that shows that level of kind of, control that we're kind of expected to have, and that if we don't have it, they'll try to give it to us.
Well, it's like the number of people that get advised to have gastric bands. You know, the medical profession gives up on them and said, "We've got this solution for you. We'll just make your stomach the size of a tennis ball for the rest of your life, and you have to eat liquids, you know, whatever." And never really look at what makes somebody get to that place in the first place. You know, what is it that's going wrong in their lives that
Right.
they do that to themselves? You know.
Because the fact of the matter is you can still stretch your stomach out after that.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
seen people do it. I
Yeah.
mean, we saw, the Chris Christie, who used to be governor of New Jersey. He did.
Mm,
He got the lap band and lost a bunch of weight when he was just running for president. And then the minute he lost, he started eating again
yeah.
and basically grew his stomach back to the size it was pre-band.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, none of this is, realistically, I think at the end of the day, we have to come back to ourselves.
Yeah.
We just have to come back to ourselves. We have to do that internal work that makes us, accept who we are, that we are, where we are,
Hmm.
and go from there. Because if we don't have it in us, then we're going to grasp at every single thing that comes along.
Yeah.
We're going to take the fen. We're going
Yeah.
to, you
And
know,
every single time it doesn't work, we just think it's our fault. It makes us feel
right.
worse and
It
worse and
must
worse.
be
Yeah,
we didn't do it right.
yeah,
We didn't do it right. We ate too
yeah.
many carbs. I don't know, we didn't drink enough
Whatever
water.
it was, we didn't do
We
it right.
Whatever it was, we just didn't do it right.
We didn't do it
Didn't do
right.
it
Silly women didn't do it right.
right. Whereas, as Glennon often says, all we have to do is just do the next thing. That's all.
Yeah, yeah,
Just do the next right thing and see what
yeah.
happens. 'Cause that's all we can control.
I have this nice little thing I give to my clients. I kind of say, imagine how you want to feel rather than what you want to look like. Imagine how you want to feel. Don't do a kind of quantum jump into the woman you really would love to be. How does she feel? What does she walk like? What does she sound like? Where? And whenever you're at some kind of crossroads where you're going to make a choice one way or another, you say, what would she do? And you do that. And every time you do that, you move one step closer to embodying her.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Think about the woman you want to be. I hope everyone heard that because I'm repeating it in case you didn't. You imagine the woman you want to be. And then when you come to a kind of big decision or a moment,
Yeah,
you
could be a
say to
moment.
yourself, what would she do? What would that person do? And then do that.
Yeah,
And the more you do that, the more you're going to become like that person
yeah.
who is really you.
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm, yeah, to flourish. Yeah, And
Who is really you?
I didn't make that up. I got that from a person called Ines Padar, who was a trainer of mine, a coach of mine, who does miraculous work in helping people, women, be more visible. Because she's like
Mhm.
she works on imposter syndrome, that kind of stuff. And she said that, and I just thought it's such a really magical thing that I use it all the time because it's just a really lovely little way of kind of getting it in your head because it's a really easy question. Once you get that image, you kind of that person because she's already in there. You know her. Just go, what would she do? And you do that. Now you might not always be able to do it, but you know what you actually want to do. You know, in those moments.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
So, Cherry, okay, so we were gonna start out at like 45 minutes and now
yeah.
we're
We've
at
gone
like
quite a
an
lot
hour.
longer.
We're over an hour. So there
Yeah,
we go. If people would like to learn more about your programs, and I know that generally you do like a month or 3 months,
yeah,
in terms of your rapid transformation programs,
yeah.
how should people get in touch with you? I already put a link to your website,
Yeah, that's the
in the
quickest way
post
because
for
there's
this
a button on
video.
there, but they can also find me on Instagram at Charya Hilton.
Uh-huh.
They're probably the easiest ways to get hold of me because I always see those all the time, or LinkedIn, but that's a more complicated thing to give you. But you can reach me there as well. But if you go to my website, then there's buttons to contact me or write me an email, whatever you like there. Yeah,
Great. So guys, you're just going to go over to charyahilton.com, or find her. I've tagged her already on Instagram. So if you follow me, go on my
great.
Instagram feed and you'll see the link for her. Um, I, it- just get in touch with her. If you are struggling, if you are having these issues, and if you're basically just spending a whole lot of your energy dealing with diet and food,
Yeah,
you don't have to.
no, you really
And that's
don't.
energy you can use for other things.
You can have a much happier life when you switch all that energy into stuff you really want to be doing.
You really can, because if, as I said, if when it's bad, a solid 3/4 of your thoughts
Yeah,
are about your food and your exercise and your body and what you're doing or not doing and wrong about, um, you only have like 25 to 30% left to deal with the rest of your life.
yeah.
And that's not fair to anybody. That's
No,
not fair to your
it's really
coworkers, that's not
bizarre.
fair to your family, that's
Yeah,
not fair to your clients or anybody who you
it
deal with.
affects everything. It saps the confidence and the joy out of your life. It really does. And no one deserves that in their life. There's a better way than that.
Yes. Yes. And thank you so much for
Thank you
helping
for having me.
women find that better way, Charya, because that's what it's all about.
And I'm looking forward to tomorrow evening when you join me on my Instagram and we can talk about what you do for women that's wonderful and magnificent and
Yes, I know. It's gonna be totally
strengthening and
fun.
something.
I'm really
Yeah,
looking forward to
yeah, great,
it.
great. Yeah, lovely.
All right, everybody. Thank you so, so much for joining us. Again, this is Linda Lippin from Linda Lippin Pilates, the Pilates Teacher Mastermind, and Strong Bones Pilates, and Charya Hilton. And any of you who are having any issues with food, any issues with body image, any issues with all of the old patterns, get in touch with her because her work is transformational and she will help you. All right. So have a great day, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Charya, hang out for a second while I end the
Yeah.
stream.